Okay, so moving forward, keeping our eye on the time, it's member spotlight session. So, Lou, without further ado, who have we got today?
Well, today, ladies and gents, we have Russell Parratt, Scott Duffield, and Emma Bateman. If you'd all like to come in, please, let's bring you in the room and start chatting.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
There you all are. Welcome, welcome, and welcome to Member Spotlight.
Yes.
Welcome. So, what we'll do first is, it's a really relaxed environment. We've got a really lovely audience. So let's just start the ball rolling. And I'm going to just go around and just say your introduction and what is your business. Let's start with you, Scott.
Hi guys, I'm Scott Duffield from the Home Solutions Group. We're a smart home integration company and electrical contractors. Basically, we give you your time back through automating your daily processes.
Brilliant, thanks. Yeah, good. Emma.
Morning everybody, so I'm Emma Bateman. I run Red Roof Services. I provide specialised cleaning and inventories. My cleaning services are slightly more than domestic cleaning, so I start with end of tenancies up to trauma and hazard, biohazard cleans.
Wow, okay, thank you, Emma. And lastly, Russell.
Hi everybody, I'm Russell from Kubo Kitchens. Kubo's sort of a design-led business with a fresh approach to the whole kitchen buying process and designing process. I'm an independent, so I work with 4 different kitchen companies, 2 German, 2 English. Typically I work with busy people who like to invest in their homes, so I like to take customers on a journey through the whole process.
Brilliant. Right, thank you. Well, now you've introduced yourself, we know what you do. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. We're going into your we're going into your past. So let's dig up what you've got in your past. I gave you some questions, but we're not going to use those questions. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. So yeah, just digging it a little bit into your past and just finding out, you know, sort of why you chose this industry or sector or the niche that you're in. What brought you to your industry? So should we start with you, Emma? Let's see, what brought you to your industry or in cleaning?
Okay, so in the past, I think many do know, but my past previous career has basically been in care provision in many different areas, from the old to the young or vice versa. I trained originally on the NNEB. I don't think that even exists anymore now, feeling a bit old here with that. Yeah, and that career path took me into management of care provision and so on. Anybody that knows Trelaws in Alton, school and college for disabled people and young adults, I was a deputy residential manager there for 12 successful years. And within that was when I decided that actually I need to do something kind of a little bit more for me. I could tell you so many facts about my staff teams, about the people that were in my care, but I got a little bit lost within it all. But I thought, well, what am I going to do? And for me, it was all about transferable skills. So if you can write a care plan on how to deal with somebody's life, and keep them healthy and well and detail that, then you can write a plan and a report on a home, because that's a little bit easy really in comparison. Yeah. So I decided that I would take that, and I started inventory services. And I started going into these properties and realizing that, if you know, I was a bit of the, I don't know, to quote Kim and Aggie, I had to critique on these things. Like, ooh, is that clean? And then I got thinking, wow. And I'd always had this little thing about, yeah, the how do you clean the extreme? And I'm not one of those funny TV watchers, you know, with to quote those programs, but it was always in my mind. So I went out and researched where I could train, how I could potentially do that, and added it to my services. And the business very, very quickly then grew, but I did a complete swap where the cleaning became the first and foremost, and the absolute recognizable, and the inventories are just kind of the sit alongside. And yeah, so that's really where I am with it all.
So it was like a natural progression, really, of building the basics and then springing into something that was ideal for you and worked for you. It's really interesting. Yeah, really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, what about you, Scott? How did you why did you choose the industry that you're in?
I started off working for Xerox, dismantling and putting photocopies back together way back in the day, and then that's just led down the path of the electrical side. And once I entered that sort of space and was working in people's homes and stuff, started to come into contact with the older systems like the Crestron and that. I just thought, quite like this, quite like what they do and how they benefit homeowners. And I think just the curiosity and the desire to learn all the cutting edge technologies is what's sort of pulled me more into that space. I ended up starting a business just through working for companies that did out of the box solutions, one size fits all, and sort of working places and think, well, actually that doesn't really work. That's not what the customer's actually asking. It's not giving them the benefits that they require, and that's how we sort of started the Home Solutions Group.
Right. And was it sorry, go Stu.
Sorry, Lou. I was going to say, I think the word "why" has been the downfall of many an employed person working for someone. They go, "Why are we doing it this way?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Was it something that you were interested in when you were young as well, though, Scott? Like tinkering with stuff and fixing stuff and that. Was it?
Yeah,
you've always been interested in.
Yeah, I've always had that curious mind of why things work a certain way and how they work, and like I've always enjoyed taking things apart. Not always been successful in putting them back together again, but it's always been something I've enjoyed doing. So and that's fundamentally how I ended up at Xerox as an engineer. Was just tinkering with photocopiers and stuff.
It's really interesting to me. It's really interesting when people choose a life choice about something that they're really interested in. It makes more of a success as opposed to be in a job that you're not really bothered or you're not really interested in. If you're interested in doing that, it gets you there. That's when you become successful, I believe.
I totally agree, and I think especially in our industry, it's so fast paced. I mean, 5 years ago, the technologies that we were installing then, some of them are now sort of obsolete or have moved on so far. The advancements are amazing. So it just keeps you interested.
It does, yeah. Brilliant, thanks. What about you, Russell? How did you get into kitchens?
Well, going on really from what you were just saying, Lou, I sort of come out of college and stumbled upon a job and went off and did 2 or 3 different types of job, really in the design, AutoCAD industry and project management. And I got to about 5 years and thought, did I plan to do this? How did I get here? And is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? So I sort of had a bit of a rethink before it was too late, and decided to have a sort of a career change and retrain. My father-in-law said to me, "Be an electrician, you earn loads of money."
Go, Scott.
I'm a bit of a creative. I sort of love to do things with my hands and create. So I decided to do carpentry. So I did night school carpentry for three years, which was tough because it was at the end of the day on a Tuesday and Thursday, and the Thursday was the theory. So come 9:30 on a Thursday night, it was very hard to stay awake. But I really enjoyed that, and then just off I went. Really started working with a kitchen company. Fitting. I've been fitting for 10 years. So carpentry is my trade. That's really how it all come about, and I sort of just trying to take it to the next level now.
I just want to point out to everybody watching, that's not a virtual background behind Russell's, that's his actual kitchen. Just in case you were wondering, that's his actual kitchen.
We've all got kitchen envy, Russell, to be fair.
I've just broken into the John Lewis down the road.
Do you think it was because you got a job with a kitchen company, that's where your direction gone? Because to be fair, as a carpenter, you could have gone in a lot of different angles. Is that just by pure sort of coincidence that you landed up, or did you always have a vested interest in kitchen?
That's a very good question, Lou. My father's actually was a carpenter by trade, so that sort of influenced decision quite a bit. But yeah, like I say, it's working with the company sort of really confirmed. We did bathrooms as well, and I went off on a tangent with bathrooms for a few years, but then sort of come back to the kitchens and the bedroom. Any sort of finishing carpentry is what I like. So yeah,
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your honesty as well. It's always good to have that. You know, it's really good to hear from, you know, from grassroots where people start and how you get to where you are.
And it's always a good icebreaker for networking to ask somebody, you know, what do you do? Oh, that's interesting. How did you get into that? Because everybody's got a story. And I've always asked that question of people, and I find it absolutely fascinating because it's never as linear as you think it is. They've done this, then they've done that. So fantastic for sharing. I just want to come back to you, Emma. I want to ask you, before you started, what one piece of advice do you wish you had been given before you got your business going?
Oh, I don't know if I can actually pinpoint one.
Well,
I think
one example of one.
I really think that I would have liked the advisory and a little bit of coaching to actually say, this is how you're supposed to do it. There is a method in all of this. I just threw myself into it, and I think anybody that knows me knows I'm a little bit impulsive sometimes. So it was just like, right, this is my idea and this is what I'm going to do. So I set up, and it was hastily done, and I wish that I'd taken my time. I did, I guess, in the initial, I went off, I think we all know I also love a little bit of training. If there's some training to be done, I'm in that room. So, you know, the inventories, I've trained to do those. So that was my first step. But actually setting up the business isn't all around training, is it? So, yeah, I think planning, I should have had a lot more planning at that stage as well. And I'm still learning about it all now, which is why we're all at Signal, I guess.
Well, I think it's a lifelong learning process. You know, I've spoken to people who have been right through, had a very successful career, and they're still learning stuff. So, but I hear the planning thing so many times. I've gone off, you know, you go, oh, that's a great idea, and you rush off into it. And if you'd have taken 10 minutes to think about what direction you're doing, you could have saved yourself a lot more time down the road. What about you, Scott? Any words of wisdom that you wish you'd known about before you started?
Yeah, I think very similar to Emma. I think if you was asking me what I'd tell somebody setting up a business now is surround yourself with successful and ambitious people. Join a mastermind group and learn from other people's experiences and save yourself some of the heartache I know I've been through in the time I've been a business owner. And that knowledge is invaluable. And from that you learn so much more. And I think it's important to be around people that have got the right mental attitude as well, that they want to drive themselves forward, and they tend to drag people along with them, rather than surrounding yourself with naysayers and, oh, you don't want to do that, you want to stay employed, you get a job for life. Those things are long gone. So I think having people around you that are successful and are ambitious and positive is a no-brainer.
Yes.
I think we cover that in Jumpstart January, don't we? Who you mix with matters, and I think you've got a really valid point there. If you surround yourself with you know, like-minded people, you kind of go on a journey together. So yeah, really key point, Scott.
I love it when somebody asks me to. They challenge my preconceptions. So I say something, and they're like, "Oh, that's interesting. Why do you say that?" Because it makes you stop and think and go, "Yeah, why do I think that?" And that can be really, really useful. What about yourself, Russell? What would you have wanted to have known before you started?
It's not good going last because all the good answers get taken up.
We will mix it up.
I'm going to echo what the other guy said, really, and listen to people that have been there, because you go into business thinking that you're invincible and you're just going to come out with a successful business, and yeah, it doesn't quite work like that. Like Scott said, if you someone like Signal, absolutely amazing. You just surround yourself with sound advice all the time. It's great. Don't employ staff willy-nilly. when the bathroom side of my business took off, I think I employed 6 staff and I bought 4 vans and I shot up like a rocket and then straight back down again, sort of thing. There was no plan to it. I was just trying to go with the flow and, oh, we're getting busier, right, let's, and it just all unraveled. So yeah, have a plan, have a growth plan, and really stick to it. And if your competition are doing it, don't do it, is some advice that I wish I'd have taken heed many years ago. So
wow, that's some great advice right there. Excellent.
Let's just talk about your industry specifically now. I'm going to ask you each a question about your specific industry. So Russell, I'll start with you because obviously you've asked for that, so we'll give you what you want. What piece of advice would you give somebody starting out in your industry? If there's anybody out there that wants to started a kitchen company, what piece of advice would you give them?
I think I'm just going to run through 2 or 3 quick ones. Don't be afraid to talk about the customer's level of investment. The elephant in the room is English people, we're funny about how much we want to spend, and we keep our cards close to our chest. But when I talk to a customer, I sort of insist that we talk about, I don't like to use the word budget, but that's really the word. Don't be afraid to charge for design work. I think people that don't charge for design don't really take care over it, and there's loads of companies that will do it, and if that's what the customer wants, then they can go off and get a free design from there. So please don't be afraid to charge for your design, and find real decent fitters, because they're your forefront, and look after them. Really is a good thing to follow, I think.
That's, yeah, really good advice. And you're right. None of us like talking about money, do we? I don't know why. I don't know why. We just, it's good to be upfront. And the design work is a really key thing as well, because so many of, the big stores say, come in and we'll do it all for free and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, you're more niche than that. So charge for your time, definitely.
And that's great. That works for some. It's horses.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
what people want. That obviously works. I'm not going to question
that.
No.
But it's not what you are. That's really good. What about you, Emma, in your industry?
So if I was going to advise anybody now, and I'm going to focus on the cleaning here, I wouldn't actually advise anybody to go straight into the biohazard and trauma cleaning without some other experience first. So starting off maybe more domestic level, end of tenancy, working up through the commercials. Straight away, I'd say do your groundwork, homework first. Get out there, look at some of the local suppliers or even those that might be further afield, investigate the products and get the housekeeping in first. There is so much that it can unravel very quickly. For example, if you haven't got safety data sheets, get your cosh in order and that sort of thing. The risk assessments and sort of that, all the background stuff. If you start out there, first of all, you're cleaning and you haven't got that, it's going to unravel.
Yeah, that's really good. So it's all about foundation, isn't it? It's kind of get the foundation,
totally. Have
a solid foundation and your building will stand. That's kind of what they say. So yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah. What about you, Scott, in your industry?
I'd say our industry is so vast. Pick the area you're going to specialise in and concentrate on that first before you try to do everything and become a master of one area as opposed to a jack of all trades across the whole lot. And then once you've picked your area, work out what benefit you're going to bring to a customer and what problems you're solving for that customer and focus on them, as opposed to, I think it's very easy in our industry to just get sidelined and sidetracked by all the bells and whistles, and people want to put in the big fancy cinemas, etc. I think you can get a better sustainable business by solving people's problems within the industry as opposed to just sort of jumping around trying to do everything. And I echo what Russell says. Don't employ people for the sake of it. I've been down the same sort of path as what Russell has at 10 blokes working for us at one point. And what I'd say is find decent staff first, and preferably before you actually need them, so you have a pool of people that you can turn to when you need to start growing. Sparks are 2 a penny. Decent sparks are really hard to find.
Yeah, I agree with that. But just going back to picking a specialist area, do you not need to do all the areas first so you know what your how do you work out what your specialist area is going to be? Is there an element of trying a few things and seeing what works for you or you're more interested in? How did that work for you?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, a lot of that you'll pick up through your apprenticeships. If you're doing an apprenticeship with a decent company, more often than not, you'll get a varied degree of education across that. But really, that part of that, I suppose, does depend on where you choose to do your apprenticeship with. If you do your apprenticeship with someone like National Rail or British Gas, you're going to learn more of their systems than anything else. But it is such a varied industry, from small domestic and stuff like we do, the smart homes, up to the big industrial sites. We've over our lifetime we've done it all. But I'd say do your hardest to do your homework first and find an area that you're more comfortable with, what excites you and what keeps you interested.
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Just in the chat, Wendy has put a comment in saying, I always say every day is a school day. You never stop learning, and that's so true. If anybody else wants to put questions to the panel, please put them in the chat. It's an interactive session, guys. So if anybody wants to ask anything or say anything, put it in the chat, and we'll surprise them with a question. That's always fun.
Emma will answer them.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Oh,
so I would echo what you said about your employees. They really can make and break your business. So employ the very best people and nurture them, definitely.
I think on that, sorry, just quickly on that, I think with employees, it's more important to find staff that have got good people skills, that can interact with a customer. You can teach them the technical side of the job. You can't necessarily teach somebody to be good with customers.
Yeah. It does come down to building that rapport, and if somebody doesn't do that and they're not natural at it, it can make the difference. Even if the work is technically the same as somebody who does have those skills, you'll get a much better response from the customer if you have built that relationship, and you've got a much better chance of them referring you. And if those people are on the front line and they're the front facing staff, investing in time and effort and finding the right people, definitely, I would definitely agree with that. So Scott, describe a typical day in your business. Is there a typical day?
Not really. Most of the day spent on site, discussing jobs with either the clients or with staff. That takes up the majority of my day, and then the evening tends to be doing the stuff working on the business, so quoting, invoicing, research, etc. But yeah, there's no such thing as a typical day, I don't think, in our trade.
Okay. What about you, Russell?
I suppose like any small business owner, you see the clown at the circus that's riding around on the unicycle and spinning the plate and playing the trumpet. It's like that. I'm based in the office generally now, so design work takes up 50% of my time, I would say. Quoting, following up materials, but then there's visiting the guys on site, making sure, talking to the customer, that sort of thing, and generally project managing, ordering materials, creating schedules, all that sort of thing involved in running projects, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And Emma, what about you? Is there a typical day? If so, what does it look like?
What's a typical day? I mean, I'm like Russell there. I'm the one that just runs around going, what's going on? I'll get an example of a day last week. I was asked to do a builder's clean. So there was a nice barn conversion thing going on, and I was expected to arrive. I was expected to have the whole property to myself. I mean, with consideration that we are still in a COVID-19 situation, it didn't go like that at all. I arrived to find 3 painters still on site, to find that 10 minutes after me, the mastic man turned up. I'm like, how am I supposed to clean this if you're doing that? And we're now all trying to socially distance and it was just ridiculous. But you have to manage it. And then, from there, I can be in the most perfect of perfect jobs which is lovely. And then I go to, like, as Scott has already said, where that day just turns into you know, you've done your bit on site, and then you can come home or to the office or wherever we are working these days and do the paperwork and the quotes and whatever. And then for me, it goes a little bit awry again, because I can turn up to a job which I think is going to be very standard, start cleaning, and actually think, no, this job is now turning from standard to complete hazard. And it's then stop, reassess, all those risk assessments come into place. How are we going to deal with this? And you just, it's like liquid mercury. There's nothing typical, nothing.
So I'm going to ask you a question now, which is kind of forward thinking, and this is always good. I think this is a good question answer to say out loud, because this really lets you, like, use your imagination as to where you actually want to be. So I want you, Russell, to start to say, describe an ideal day in your business. And this will really show us where you want to be going forward.
Good question. I suppose really I quite like the designing side, the survey design, and the creating the visuals and that sort of selling side of the business. So in answer to the question, that would be where I'd like to be. And perhaps as soon as that orders in on the deposits paid, I'd like to pass it down to a team member that could then, a trusted team member that could almost manage the job, and I would oversee and sort of visit the client maybe at the end or halfway through. That's really quite like where I'd like to head, but you've got to get there slowly. Like I said before, you can't.
But it's achievable, right? It is. Yeah, it's achievable to get to that, definitely.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Brilliant. What about you, Scott? What's your ideal day look like?
A boat moored off the Greek island somewhere. No, I think like Russell said,
you were going to say that.
I think like Russell said, I really do enjoy the interaction with the customer and going through the design process of the system, from trying to find out exactly what they're trying to achieve and then coming up with the solutions to do that. And very similar to Russ, I think that would be my ideal day, is to spend the time with the customers and then come back and spend the time with the team designing solutions for them and then moving on to the next project.
Brilliant. And you, Emma?
I think my ideal day would be literally get up, go and do whatever the clean or whatever it is that I've got to do, work with my team. And I say team, I do have some casual staff now, as and when needed. Work with them, work alone, depending on what the job may be. But yeah, get the cleans done. That's where I get my kicks. I love that end clean. And then to actually be able to come home, shut my door, and not have to worry about the rest of it, and not be, as again going back to Russell's clown on the unicycle with all the things that that would be my ideal, is not to be that person anymore. Yeah,
brilliant. I mean, that's a resounding sort of similarity that you all have. It's pretty much take yourself off the tools, elevate yourself up. The key there, though, I think it has to be said, is again your team. You have to have a good team that has the same ethos as you, has the same presentability as you, because that's when it begins to fall down. So I think it's really key to build a good team. So proof is in the pudding, really, definitely.
Sorry, Lou, if I would actually though like to be the other way. I would like to be on the tools and forget everything else.
Okay.
I'd rather have somebody actually doing this office stuff. I can't stand it. I really can't. It's the bit that I say I'm better off out there, and that's where my skill set is. And that's really what I do. So so I'm slightly
the other way. Okay. Well, and it's I mean, everything that you say is achievable, right? It definitely is. It's growth in different ways. I mean, you could, Emma, have a company that dealt with all of the admin and all of that for you. That's not a difficult thing to hand over to somebody, is it?
I mean, it's not a soft introduction to that would be possibly to get a VA. to look
Exactly.
after things, answer the phone, and know,
Yeah.
get to feel the rhythm of what your business is, so that if you do have to employ someone, that VA could then perhaps brief you on what skills to look for in the employee.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just a thought, just chucking the ideas out there. Moving forward, looking into the future. So we've looked back, we've had a chat about what's going on now. Looking into the future, Scott, what are some of your life goals? What do you want to achieve?
What I want to achieve?
Yeah.
I suppose my ultimate goals is to provide a steady and good lifestyle for my family and my kids. In terms of materialistic stuff, I think like most people I'd love to be mortgage free. We'd love to have a nice holiday home out in Zante, and possibly get a boat. And that's where I'm heading in. That's what I want for myself and the family. Just be stress free, really, and have the financial freedom. I think like most people to do what we want to do.
Yeah, so build your business up as an asset and either have somebody manage it for you that you oversee, or sell it on and then invest the result.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay, it's achievable. That's the thing. It's not, you're not saying, you know, I want to run the world. You're saying, I just want a little slice of it that's mine, that's stress free. That's great. What about you, Russell? What's your life goals?
Yeah, I suppose very similar to Scott again, build up a sort of a business that's a saleable system or model per se. Maybe I don't like the word franchise because that sort of seems to be national network big, but maybe something like that. And I think that I can do that now, whereas 3 years ago I was all over the show and didn't really have the process in place. But I'm building up on that. So like Scott, the usual really, retire early if possible, but never come completely away from it, but just take a step back. But for the time being, a lifestyle business would be good. Just I like the fact that I can still be with the kids whilst they still want to know me, really. So yeah.
Okay. And Em, what about you? What are your life goals?
I think really similar. I mean, unlike Scott and Russell, I think as we all know, I don't have children, so I don't have little people to worry about. It's just pretty much me and, you know, Mark back there. So, you know, to carry on with the business, I enjoy it. I love it. To have that financial stability, to just sort of do what I want when I want to do it. If that is holidays, home, yeah, get that new kitchen in, or whatever that may be, and yeah, just be really comfortable. And I think it's not sort of big or flashy. I think I've got quite a humble outlook on things, really. There's no sort of other designs to, like you say, rule the world. It's just to have that little place and continue doing what I'm doing, basically.
Fair enough. That's, you know, having a little slice of your own heaven is perfectly acceptable. But it's knowing what you want that allows you to set the goals to drive towards it.
Right, well, we've all been in these difficult times over the last 12 weeks. It's been challenging and different, and our goals may be slightly different, and our business may have slightly, you know, changed and tweaked. But let's just wanted to ask you, what if there are any opportunities in your sector or industry at the moment? Has anybody looked at your industry and said, right, what opportunity have I got now? So let's start with you, Russell. Is there any opportunities that you can see in your industry at the moment?
I think so, yeah, definitely. People have had a lot of time at home, so they've been looking at that space that they're thinking we must really get that sorted out. So kitchens and bedrooms perhaps organise themselves in that respect. But also looking at the other side of things, if you've spent so much time at home, you might be getting a divorce. So that's 2 kitchens. That's a kitchen in one flat and a kitchen in another. Just that sort of thing, really. People, home offices, people are going to be working from home more. We do the odd home office, so that's something that I can offer, make that space comfortable for you rather than on the dining room table with the kids running around and all that sort of thing going on. So yeah,
I mean, it's really important, isn't it, to look for opportunities out of, you know, that's what we do, right? I mean, I agree. We've used our kitchen so much more in the last 12 weeks because you're just, you know, in your house all the time cooking. So yeah, I agree. I think we've been here a long time in our houses, and we've seen a lot of flaws in our houses that we don't normally see because you're just kind of like, yeah, you're too busy. So yeah, definitely an opportunity. What about you, Scott? Are there any opportunities in your industry at the moment?
Yeah, I think there is. To echo, it sounds like we're doing this most of the morning, but I think with a lot more people working from home, I think a lot of people have realised that actually it's quite sustainable for them to work from home. So we're seeing the opportunities to upgrade people's like internet infrastructure, Wi-Fi, increase their electrical system so they can actually have a small space for themselves within the house, or they've got their external offices being built by companies like Russell's, and there's always the opportunity there to wiring, etc. So I think that's definitely become more prevalent over the next few months.
What about in the care industry, because you're involved in that as well? Is there a big upsurge in that people possibly don't want to go into care homes anymore and think the solutions at home might be better? Because I know that you're involved in that as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I think there will be definitely with the locks on wireless system, we can give people assisted living control, so you can keep an eye effectively on elderly loved ones without having to sort of intrude on their privacy. I think that's definitely going to be on the uptake moving forward.
Yeah, well, I would think so, because of the problems that we have had in the care homes. I mean, you know, we've had a lot of deaths in care homes, so people might be a little bit more reluctant or stay at home longer, possibly with the help of the solutions that you can do. I would see that as a big opportunity for you.
Yeah, I think it's not just the care homes. I think just generally people who've got parents who live quite a way away, whereas before it would have been nice to have been able to make sure they were okay with the systems that we can provide through their daily routine interruptions, etc. I think more people are going to start to look at that and think, well, especially as we have the uncertainty of how long social distancing, etc., is going to stay in place, especially with people self-shielding as well. You know, the elderly they're more vulnerable, and they are tending to want to lock themselves away. So by being able to have a remote system that doesn't sort of have a direct impact on their daily life, but will allow you to make sure that they're okay and that they're up and they're moving about, it's definitely going to be opportunities there for us.
I see a big advertising campaign coming our way. What about you, Emma?
Yeah, the cleaning industry has been one that through COVID-19, it really is quite divided now. Back right at the start of COVID, I did some significant COVID cleaning. We you know, the whole full white suit thing similar to what's behind me, and the respirators, and you know, that was really serious cleaning. Unfortunately, within all of that, there was a boom in cleaning businesses that just people erupted into cleaning all over the place, and unfortunately that has put a lot of cleaners on one foot a stable road, and on the other foot a very rocky road, and we don't really know where this is going. So I'm kind of sort of in between at the moment. I think future it could be really good, but it's yet to be seen, unfortunately. I think unfortunately we know that we focused as within Signal, we focused on that whole topic of pivoting, and unfortunately but the cleaning industry took a lot of people where they pivoted into cleaning as well. They were doing some significant cleaning where there was a lot of bad practices. There was a lot of desperate people out there who were also undercutting significantly what cleaning prices should be in that area. They were putting themselves at risk, they were putting others at risk. So there's still quite a lot of tarnishing going on. There's all sorts. So for us, it's a strange, still very much a strange time, with quite a bit of uncertainty, really.
I think that actually builds in an opportunity, because there's always going to be a backlash reaction to opportunists coming into a marketplace, because people will get dissatisfied with either poor performance or substandard results, and that gives you an opportunity to keep your prices strong and say, well, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, literally. And I think this is a little bit maybe of a sort of a longer game at the moment.
Yep,
you know, people have to realize that I think there's a phrase or a saying, you pay cheap, pay twice.
yeah.
Certainly yes, because the health and the safety and the backlash on the effect on somebody's health are, it's not worth gambling with, really.
Exactly.
No.
Well, we've only got a couple of minutes left, so I just want to do a quick fire round. Have you got anything planned? What's the most exciting thing you've got planned for your business coming up? Let's start with you, Scott. Have you got anything exciting planned?
Anything exciting plans in terms of projects or where we're going with the business?
Yeah, projects, anything. What's the most exciting thing you've got planned?
Yeah, we've got quite an exciting project coming up over in Hazelmere soon. A nice 6-bed house, fully automated with cinema. Quite looking forward to getting stuck into that, to be completely honest.
Is that the same project that Gary was talking about earlier?
Nope. It's a completely different one. Yeah.
This
is a new build coming straight out of the ground.
Wow. Brilliant. What about you, Russell? Have you got anything exciting planned in the business?
Well, I offer kitchens to everyone. I've got kitchens from £5,000 up to 50 grand, and I really want to look at the £5,000 and the lower end of the market, and maybe produce like a Shopify internet buying platform. Not sure, but I'm quite excited about thinking about if it can work or not. So.
We'll have a conversation about that.
All right, mister.
He comes in like from above. We'll have a conversation.
On it. Collaboration. It's collaboration.
Collaboration, man.
Brilliant. And Emma, have you got anything exciting planned in the near future for the business?
I'm just me personally. I'm looking into more training. I want to further my trauma cleaning training, and I want to. There's a lot to happen there, but I don't want to grace you all out.
No, so. I think that in the future, businesses, specifically medical and allied industries, are going to really want qualified people who are at the top of their game and will just have to pay for it and soak it up, because they can't afford. Could you imagine a care home having a massive outbreak of proportions that we've seen with COVID with something else? Just decimates their business. So I think we've got the right kind of attitude of it is a long game. This isn't going away anytime soon, and it's just going to make people more willing to spend money on the right hygiene. McDonald's are advertising, we're open and we've increased cleaning. It's like, well, what were you doing beforehand? What were you getting away with?
To be fair to them, they've actually increased their cleaning products. So, but
I know, I'm being facetious.
I know.
Well, Lou, what an amazing answers, amazing stories that we've had from our members today. Thank you very much for sharing. Thank you.
Scott, did you want to add something?
Yeah, just quickly, I think Emma's got an opportunity there to put herself at the forefront with education on forwards, what's actually involved in doing the cleaning properly. And I think if you start to educate people and explain this is exactly what we need to do, people will make their own mind up. Well, how can companies be doing that so cheap then? And I think will be able to make your pricing more solid just by giving that service.
Or start your own training company to train people how to do it properly.
Well, that was also an option, and still one that I'm kind of looking into, and thank you for that, because again, training last year, I did that education certificate.
Exactly. Train the trainers, train people. Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut across this flow of ideas, but we have run out of time, and it would be remiss of me to let it trickle on, because I'm sure we could keep talking for another half an hour, another hour. We've got a session after this where we're going to be looking at sales and improving your sales. Thank you very much. I know you can't hear it, but ladies and gentlemen, give them a round of applause. Go on.
It's been really lovely to talk to all of you, and thank you so much for your honesty. It really has been great. I've really enjoyed my morning. Thank you for that.
Okay, so
Thank you.
that's the end of the spotlight session. We're going to have a quick 10-minute break as always. So we'll see you in part 2. The links should be sent out. If you haven't had a link, email Gareth now and he'll email it back to you. And you should have had the workbook. Again, if you haven't had it, look in your inbox, email Gareth and he'll get it to you. I'll see you in 10 very short minutes. Thank you very much, Scott. Thank you very much, Emma. Thank you very much, Russell. And I'll see you two after the break, Lou.
See you later. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Welcome back, Emma, Wendy, Sue, Angie.
Hi. Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, welcome back. Welcome, welcome.
Good. Here we are again, and it's Friday again. How did that happen? Just like
Scary.
Zoomed past the week. This week really did zoom past.
it just zoomed past.
It did.
That was fun this morning.
It was really good. Did you enjoy the session? Yeah.
I just said to Emma and to Russell, actually, I think it made it easier for us because we all sort of know each other quite well.
Yeah, I think it was.
Jump in and comment with each other was quite easy.
I know.
Well, that's it,
And
being that you're all, you know, dwellers.
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 Mixed dweller, but you know.
Still
Well,
a dweller. Once a dweller, always a dweller, Scott.
Yeah.
It could have been worse.
Just the shed dweller now.
I have to say, I think that was possibly, I don't know, it was a first. I think it was maybe better doing it this way than in the room. I'm not
Well, you have that thing, isn't it? People, you always feel protected when you're behind your keyboard, so it's easier to.
Yeah.
I think also it was just easier to feel like we were just talking amongst 5 of us as opposed to knowing that there was people watching.
Yeah.
So
It was good.
When I did it the other month, it was much better not thinking about who was out there listening.
Yeah, totally.
Oh gosh, are there people listening? I didn't even realise. I'm in my own little world. Oh, that's what we're doing.
It was only when Gary made a comment, I was like, hold on, there's actually people listening to what we're saying.
No, it was good. It was a really it's an informal chat, and it's lovely to hear, as I said to you before, it's so lovely to hear the insights of people's businesses, because you really learn from it and you get inspired by it as well. So it's I think it's a really valuable session, the spotlight session.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So shall we get cracking? We can always admit people as we go.
Yeah.
I'm just going to share my screen quickly. There we go. Hopefully you can see.
Oh, nice picture.
Oh, is that your view, Stu?
I know it's not doing what I want it to.
It's working
It
well.
was
It's
just-
quite a relaxing picture.
Well, lucky it was just that scene.
I was about
on
to
your
say, yeah, we
desktop.
could have had something really surprising come up.
Hey, listen, the days of any spicy gossip with Morrison are long since past.
I think
Well, we
we're
can
doing
dig it
a
up.
Nice little world travel there. We've got Stu's Desert
Northern
Island.
Lights going on. We've got the
That's-
Northern Lights. That's
That's my
lovely.
desert island
Yeah.
where I go and I picture myself de-stressing. So welcome back. To get the most from this session, please mute your mic when you're not speaking so we don't get any distracting noises or comments. Remove your distracting backgrounds. Yes, I'm looking at you, the Rylands. That's a lovely Aurora Borealis or Australis, but it is moving. Try not to move around too much as well if you're on a hands-free or a mobile device, because that can be distracting as well. And if there are any noises that could possibly interrupt, again, switch off your phone, mute, silent, all of that kind of like, you know, put a bandage around the dog's muzzle, something that, you know, it's going to make a noise. Silence it. Try to go somewhere quiet so you can focus, and please sit close to your mic when speaking so we can hear you. Fabulous. Excellent. So with that being said, let's crack on. So this month we were talking about all things sales, and when it comes to sales, there is no there's no formula that will fit every single business, because every business sells things slightly differently. They have different focus on different products and services, and we all have different types of customer. You know, the type of customer that might be buying from one business might be entirely different from another, from location to financial resources to the speed and rapidity at which they want you to deliver the services. So these are just a general framework of questions to ask yourself about how you are performing as a salesperson in your business, or, you know, if you employ salespeople, how they might be performing, and you can listen in and hear perhaps how you could tweak their performances. Oh, don't know why that's happened. Don't know why that's happened. I've got the glitches in today. But so what I want to do is explore a few strategies that small businesses can use when speaking with a potential customer, and simple ways to overcome common objections or prevent them from coming up in the first place. So hopefully you've got the workbook, the framework under which we're going to work today. The worksheet should have been sent out to you. Has everybody got it? Can I see a show of hands? Yes, nods, thumbs up. Brilliant. Fantastic.
I'll send it to you, Emma.
Fantastic. Okay. So what I would like to go through first is that all of this is thinking about these questions is with your perfect ideal customer in mind. Okay, it may very well be that you can't overcome an objection for somebody who's not a good fit. They might want it in a time frame you can't deliver it in. They might want a budget, or have a budget that you can't accommodate. There may be many reasons, but try and think about this in light of all of the conversations you've had with good customers, ideal customers that perhaps didn't work. So let's get started. The first thing is, a sales conversation is an exchange of value, right? And it needs to be structured. You cannot just pick up the phone or rattle off an email without knowing exactly where the person is in their purchasing journey. Okay, all customers will go through a purchasing journey, and hopefully you will understand where the customer is so that you can tailor and structure your conversation to their needs at that moment. And to begin with, you've got to listen. Okay, so there is a process called the layer process, L-A-E-R, as you can see. The first one is to listen. Okay, you cannot provide value without understanding what value and benefits your target audience, your ideal customer who sat in front of you, wants. Okay, so just start listening. You know, start asking a few open-ended questions. We'll get to open-ended questions in a little bit, but just by listening to what they're saying to you and not just thinking, oh yeah, it's one of those people, or oh, they're going to want X, Y, or Z, because by actively listening and thinking about what they're telling you and making notes about it, even if you have to apologize and say, excuse me, just momentarily halt while I note that down, because that seems really important to you, and you can ask them again, you know, you've mentioned that seems really important, and get their agreement. You're listening to what they're telling you so that you can discover exactly what they want from you. Lots of times I've been in so many sales positions where I'm the customer and the person has made some broad sweeping assumptions and have lost my interest, lost my potential custom for forever. So by listening early on, you cannot spend too much time gathering information about that customer's particular wants and needs. Then follow it up with an acknowledgement of what they've said. Now that's as simple as just reading back the notes that you've made. So if I've heard you correctly, you want this. This is important to you. This is the other thing that you said. I'm clear about this. Did I get this right? And just layer up those comments that they've made to make the other person understand how much of what they need you have understood. Okay, because quite often people say things, we make assumptions, and the other person has meant something entirely different. So by acknowledging what they've said and reading it back, you give space for them to clarify and give you more information, because the person might say, oh, no, 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 sorry, when I said that, what I actually meant was, or they might provide a further insight. Oh, yes, that's correct. And blah, 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 blah. So that acknowledgement of what they've said is really important, because it prevents you from making assumptions about what the other person's intentions are, and gets clear in your head actually what you've heard, because the gap between what somebody says and what you've heard might be a gulf. And by saying, this is how I've understood what you've said, please do add more, or if I've got it wrong, please let me know, you're giving them permission to further enhance your understanding of where they're at. Then once you've read that back to them, you can explore those comments, the things that they have said that you perhaps don't quite understand. So that's a time where a discussion can happen. So this goes, tell me what you want. Okay, right. This is what I've heard, but I might not have quite understood this. Could you tell me more? So it gives you a chance to explore those things that you don't fully understand. At that point, you should have done full sales discovery and have the person sat in front of you that you fully understand where they are. And this might be really quick. You know, this doesn't have to be a lengthy process if it's quite a simple business exchange. You know, retailers might take a lot quicker to do this with the customer sat in front of them, compared to someone like John and Fiona, who might be having a commissioning process for an industrial plant. And this process might take a few weeks to go backwards and forwards and explore the topics around it. But then eventually you can respond by saying, okay, what I now know about what your position is this. And I believe that this product or service is the best thing to suit your needs, because it does this and this and this. And those things that you tick off are all of the things that you heard when you asked them to tell you about their problem. At that point, if you can answer all of their questions with all of the points that your service or business covers off for them, there's no reason why they shouldn't go ahead, unless there's something more that they're not telling you. At which point you can go back round the process and go, I didn't know that. Please tell me more about that. And you can go in and you can go round this loop as many times as you need to drill right into what the customer needs, and take the time to do it. Because once you have made that loop, you can go around it and talk about these topics again and again, and the customer will get comfortable with the idea of sharing and digging into that information. So there is a link in the workbook. There is further reading there for you, which explains this process in a little more depth. And I didn't want to labour the topic, but it really is the foundation of most sales processes. Obviously, if you're selling online, you don't get this opportunity, but it's still an important part of understanding the customer's needs and putting all that information for them online. So are there any questions? Does anybody have any insights or want to share any of their experiences that they've had with sales discovery? Excellent. Excellent. Learning is occurring. Fabulous. So again, with your ideal customer in mind, think about the common objections that your prospects might make. These might be all sorts of things. It's not the right color. It doesn't do this. I want it for a certain price and you don't do that. There are a million things that people say. I can't afford it right now, or I need to speak to insert someone, you know, husband, boss, other person. So having strategies to overcome these common objections can really help you understand more about your customers, because you already anticipate those objections, but can also help you share your skill and experience in showing the customer that their objection isn't necessarily as valid as that person has put in place. Now, if the person isn't going to buy from you, you need to find that out really early on. So going back to that layering process, in the explore part of it, you might ask questions, and we'll come on to this again. Do we need to speak to anyone else in your organization? Or is this a purchase that you're intending to make in the next few hours, weeks, months? Again, that question can be tweaked according to your customer, how they buy, the time frame which they buy in, and what you know about them. But discovering what the objections are before the person raises them allows you to cover those off when you're explaining how you do what you do for them. So again, that listening process, listening to what they're saying about, you know, their needs and their wants, you can overcome some of these objections by saying, oh, that's interesting. You said that you needed it delivered by tomorrow, and yet you've got to go and speak to your boss. How quickly is your boss going to sign off on this? So that you can get a real insight. You know, sales isn't passive. Sales is not just sitting there listening to what the customer tells you and just accepting it. Sales is about digging into those statements that they make and not just assuming that they've made them with all of the information that you have to hand, because ultimately they're buying from you in the way that they kind of are making up as they go along. Whereas you should be selling in a structured way, which slows them down and says, right, oh, hang on a minute, you've said that, let's explore that, let's dig into that. So I'd like people right now to just spend the next 5 minutes to make a list of a few common objections that you've either heard or are afraid of or might potentially meet in the future, that your business could use having a way of overcoming. Yeah, so we'll call it 3 minutes past 11, and we won't go into breakout rooms. We'll just stay here, and if you've got any questions during this, you can raise your hand and I'll come to you. Just think about those common objections that you hear from with your ideal customer in mind. How are people getting along? Are you all there? Give me a hand up in the air if you're ready. Fantastic. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Hands in the air. Yeah, yeah.
Like you just don't care. I had to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, who would like to share some of their common objections? Yes, Angie. Don't forget you're on mute. There we go.
One of the main things that I find being a virtual assistant is that people say, why would I hand it to you when I can do it myself? That's quite valid in a way, because obviously they've done it, but that's not their zone of genius, that's mine. So actually, if I was to take the work off them, it would give them much more time to spend with their clients or other tasks that they're much more good at, clever at. So that's one of the things that I've come across.
Okay, so that's about understanding the value you bring at the cost point that you're charging. So it might be worth digging into what their major competence is. How good are you at doing the things that you're asking me to do? How much frustration, pain is perhaps a word that identifies where they're at. By for me, doing bookkeeping is painful. Literally, it's like a physical pain of having to look on the receipt where the date is and do all of that. And I'd much rather be doing something else. And finding out what is their sweet spot. Wouldn't you prefer spending 10 more hours a week on the phone selling? What would your business look like with one new client a week? Yeah. That's what I give you. I give you room to find that. So it's not the cost to the business, it's the opportunity that you afford that business owner. And I would be building up value statements around that. We're going to get onto some questions that you can ask customers or potential customers in a minute in the next section, but don't focus on defending your position by saying, well, it's only X an hour and I'm only going to be this. Go, how many more customers per month will my X amount of hours a week allow you to get? Because that's the way I sell the website services that we sell, by saying, recently we did a revamp, $3,000. The guy was like, $3,000. I said, how much profit do you make on a sale? He said, between $2,000 and $3,000. I said, so all this website has to do is get you 2 customers and you're the right side of this. And he went, yeah. I said, then do you think what we are doing is going to give you two new customers that you wouldn't have got? He said, yeah, I'm really confident about that. I said, so it should be a no-brainer at that point. There's no coercion. I'm just showing him that by not spending that money, that's 2 customers this month. So that's 4 customers in 2 months. It's 24 customers in a year that you're losing out on because you're not spending £2,000 to £3,000 when you could be making £48,000 or more. That's the opportunity you're missing out on. Is it a gamble? All businesses, but it's a risk-balanced gamble. You know that you can deliver what you sell, you just need more inquiries. So you can see you're uncovering the value there by asking them those questions, which show and demonstrate your value to them is beyond the cost to their business.
Yeah.
Does that give you strategy going forward? Anybody else? Anybody else? Come on, you've all had objections. John, Fiona, tell us.
Well, we got one here, but we were hit with about 5 years ago and absolutely knocked us sideways. After we'd negotiated a small process plant for a company in Liverpool, and we said, and the idea was it would actually allow them to make some stuff in-house that they were currently selling at a loss through outsourcing. And the guy suddenly went silent after we quoted. And after a month or two, I got in touch with them and I said, what's the situation? And the guy I'd been dealing with said, well, I'm terribly sorry, I took this to the board and they said it was not a priority. And he sounded as heartbroken as we did.
Yes. So that situation was, you had a sales conversation with somebody who couldn't say yes. So that process was broken before you even started to quote. Now, it may have very well been that, and these are imponderables, we don't know, but by asking the question of, do you sign off on this spend? Oh, well, no, I have to take it to my board. Okay, who on your board do we need to speak to? Yeah, and not even engaging in the conversation until you've got the decision makers around a table, quite sometimes literally. I know that's difficult these days, but because the stakeholder or the decision maker might have a completely different list of priorities. There may be a reason why making a loss on that is actually a benefit to them, that they've not passed down the chain because the person lower down doesn't have their hand on the purse strings. It might be it's a tax advantage on for a particular reason that they make a loss. Now, you don't have all that information, so you're quoting into a situation that you have no control over. And there's an old methodology in sales which says you have to retain control of the sale. Now, that can feel outmoded because, you know, things move on, but there is a certain element that you have to retain control over, and that is having the attention of everybody who is going to say yes. It's quite often why car salesmen, they want the partner of the person in the room. Because
yeah, I was just going to say that it's like when you phone up double glazing, they always go, "Is your husband going to be in when I come round?" I mean, that's what they always ask. They go, you know, is your husband going to be with you? Because they only want to come to your house because they want you to sign then and there with both people there to sign off on it. So
but that comes down to the first part of any sales process, which is qualifying the lead. Does this lead have the right to say yes? And if they say yes, can they sign the check? Can they pay the money? Because unless you're talking to the person who can do that, you're not having a sales conversation, you're being led a merry dance. And it's about being really clear about that don't get seduced with the, oh, no, it's fine, my boss just says yes to anything I put in front of them. Well, that's great. Let's include them in this conversation, because I would be very interested to hear what they want out of it so I can deliver extra value. Yeah, so there are ways of overcoming that. If the person's like, no, or, oh, I'm just shopping around for some quotes at the moment, well, that's fantastic. When you have a few quotes, come back to me, share them with us, and we'll give you the best deal that we can. But until then, I'm afraid we don't price shop. We're not a price comparison service. You know, and you can be that bullish.
As a consumer though, Stu, how do you get your 3 quotes? Because if I want to buy something big like that, I want to get 3 quotes. So how do you...
You don't tell the person that you're asking for 3 quotes.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying. So, you know, people want, you know, to get prices. So you've got to be prepared that people are going to shop around, because that's what people do.
Absolutely. But again, it's about slowing things down and saying to the person, it's really interesting that you phoned today. Thank you very much. You know, what's your timescale on this? Are you looking to just get a feel for pricing, or are you looking to roll this forward? And you can ask those questions. And if they say, oh, I'm just shopping for pricing at the moment, you can say, right, well, we can give you a really good estimate, but we can't possibly quote until we have a sort of sales discovery meeting, because there are so many complicated factors. Now, that's not going to work for all businesses. Sometimes somebody's just going to pick up the phone and say, what's your hourly rate? And you're just going to have to quote flat. But you can put some provisos in and say, well, that's our hourly rate. However, you know, it will depend entirely on what we're being asked to do, how many hours that's going to take us.
Exactly. I think Scott had something to say. Scott had something, yeah?
Yeah, fire away, Scott.
Yeah, I think you pretty much answered it. We quite often end up talking to our clients, normally quite wealthy, and we end up talking to the PA. And the chance of actually getting to sit down in front of the person that's actually paying for it is nigh on impossible. It's just how far do you go with that process? You know, do you have to make a gut call on it that you're getting your time wasted, or do you just say that if I can't talk to the decision maker, meh?
There is a certain amount of gut call. You know, sales is part science, part art, and part skill that you develop. And if you develop a good rapport with that PA, you've got a much better chance of them nudging the work in your direction, because all humans play favourites. We've all got people we like, and we've all got people we dislike. So if you spend time developing a relationship with that PA before you go into the sales process, I'll give you an example. So I phoned up to speak to Colin Shannon at the Herald, and his PA always answers. She's always lovely. And the first time she answered the phone to me, she said, hello, Colin Shannon's line, how can I help you? I said, oh, hello, can I speak to Colin? She, oh, he's not here. I said, I'm really sorry about that. Who am I talking to? And she said, oh, my name's Stella. Now, I have an aunt, Stella, just out of the blue, but I always try and find something with that person who picks up the phone that I have something in common with. And sometimes, yeah, I've got aunts and uncles with all sorts of weird and wonderful names that I share in common with PAs. But it gives you that kind of, oh, I've got an aunt with Stella. That's a really unusual name. It's a fantastic name. It means star, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Oh, and the next time I phoned up, she answered the phone. Hello, Colin Shannon's phone. I went, is that Stella? Yeah. And suddenly you've crossed over from being the annoying person on the end of the phone to someone they have a relationship with. And I'm the guy with the moustache and the loud suits, which Colin had shown her. That helps, but it creates a bond where you can ask them questions like, I don't suppose you could find out from them, if they want this as well as this, or this alone. I know these are a load of questions, but it helps me give them the best quote I possibly can. When that person is making a decision, they're going to say to the PA, who do you like? Or, who came across as the most trustworthy? Or which one would you pick out of this? They're going to ask some kind of qualifying question like that of their PA, because they trust their PA. I mean, Louise, you've been a PA, haven't you?
I have. I've been a PA, I've been a VA, I've been an EA, I've been all of those. And to be fair, you are the gatekeeper, and you are often tasked with doing these things, and you warm to different people. So it's exactly true what you say. The people, that you warm to are generally the people that you're going to say, oh no, they were great, because the people that are instructing you to get these kind of quotes completely trust you. So they go with what you say. So it does. I'm sure I see Angie's nodding, and Wendy's been nodding as well. It's perfectly true. So
yeah. It don't alienate the gatekeeper. That is an old, sidestep the gatekeeper, methods of getting past the dragon. These are all outmoded things. Treat the person as a human being that has wants and needs of their own, and you build a relationship with them. Hi, I'm sorry he's not here at the moment. How can I help? I'm glad you can help me. Yeah. I've got some questions, and I'm not sure if you're going to know all about his domestic arrangements, and that they're going to seem really impertinent, but they're really important to us. How do we best arrange this? Is a Zoom call with him or her the best thing? Or can I send it to you and you can ask them and get it back to me? How do we do this? And get them on side that they're as much an integral part of this process as the end user is going to be.
Well, yeah, I would just say don't underestimate the importance of somebody's PA or VA, because they are very, very important to somebody, especially somebody who's very busy. They pass it on. So, yeah, going back to your question, Scott, it's know who to schmooze.
And just having an honest relationship with the person, and like, I know I've got to ask these questions. I'm not sure you're going to know. So why don't I just send it over via email? You can get the answers for me. And if there's anything else I need to know, would that be all right? I know it seems a long-winded way of doing it, but we work on a right first time basis, and this helps us do that. So can you help us achieve what we need to do to give your boss the best that we can give? And explaining your process to that person, rather than just trying to ride roughshod and get to the other person and kind of wiping them out. Anybody else got any objections and anything that they're possibly hearing? Shayna?
My classic one has been, and I think I keep coming back to it, my classic one has been someone saying, well, if you can't guarantee me clients, I don't want to come and work at the centre. And that's quite an interesting one. I know I've had a brief chats to various people about maybe putting in an extra package that would direct them, but that's my most common one, that they think that by being in a high profile centre that they then don't have to do any marketing at all. And I've got quite clear that if it, you know, and in fact I've just seen this happen with one of my practitioners, that she works in a place where they do provide her clients, and through this process, through what's been going on recently, she can't talk to any of them because they're not hers, they belong to the practice.
Yes.
And so it's got me very, very even clearer than I was getting about, actually, do you know what, if they're the centre's clients, then they're not your clients, it's my business. And how one works through that. So that's one of them. The other is, it seems to be because people have been training for a long time and paying a lot out, and I think we did touch on it in our last meeting, they're perhaps unrealistic about how quickly their practice might build. So they're seeing a rate of money going out, and they expect to be full within weeks of opening. And it's totally unrealistic.
It's almost like you need an education process,
yeah,
which is partly part of your sales process. So you invite them in to share with them how your practice, your centre assists them, and also how it doesn't, how it can't. Because if we go and get you a customer, that's our customer. And there is a line drawn, and you will have to come through us to reach them. And most centres will be very much like that. If they provide you with a customer, that customer is their customer and not yours. And explain to them the differences. And then, you know, if you want to work like that, well, these are our prices, and they are much bigger because we're taking on all of the risk. We are finding the customers. We are providing that with you, which is why we don't do that, because we need to keep our costs down, because you're starting out in business and your cost base is going to be eaten into your margin. And getting established, you know, don't think it's going to be 3 months, 6 months. Think of it as a 2-year process of increasing your presence and getting your name out there, which we help and share tidbits, information. We have regular little training sessions, which are 20 minutes, just to give you a bit of, you know, I learned this today and I'm passing it on. And you run your own kind of little mini practitioner hub in your centre, and give them the opportunity of that and share that as the value. We don't find customers for you. We invest in you by giving you the skills to find your own customers, which is a lifelong skill that will see money in your bank for years to come.
It's also managing their expectations, though, isn't it, as well, Shana? Just completely managing them and giving them a proper, you know, view of what this is going to look like, and how to, without putting them off. So there's that fine balance, isn't there?
It's fascinating because they want it to be their own business.
Yeah.
It's that mismatch between thinking, well, it'd be their business, but my responsibility to build it for them.
Exactly.
And once I got really clear, and it's been some of the early meetings of Signal where I was a bit muddled about who my customers were, that has really helped me clarify that aspect of it.
I think that also comes back to what I preface this with, and I've said several times throughout it: if somebody wants you to find them customers, is that person your ideal customer? And it doesn't matter how many times you overcome an objection, if that person is insistent that that is what they want from what your relationship is, you can't form a contract, therefore they're not an ideal customer.
Absolutely, and I got that very early on, Stuart, and it went in my email, and I actually got that. I got a response from someone saying, if you're not, then I don't want to come. And I was like, great, my email did what it was supposed to do.
Exactly. And you can't win them all. This isn't about having every single sales conversation and winning every single piece of business. This is having a conversation with someone and seriously uncovering all of those things which are going to be a problem after they've paid some money, so that you don't end up having to adapt your process, your business for one person because, I didn't find that out and I didn't really kind of understand what they meant by that. They assumed that I assumed that, and now we have this situation where neither of us is happy.
Yeah, well, I took on a few people when I took over the business who hadn't, you know, who I hadn't taken on. I'm much clearer, and I have not taken on very many people because they've also got to be a good fit for the business and with the other practitioners. So one of the things for practitioners is it can be quite lonely, and so therefore I'm really mindful that it's got to work as a group as much as the individual.
It's what we talked about in the first session this morning, didn't we, when we were talking to Scott and Russell and Emma, talking about, you know, the people that you have around you, you know, they've got to be a good fit. They've got to have the right ethos. They've, you know, it's all got to work together as a unit. Otherwise, you know, you're going to come into problems with that.
Yeah, yeah.
And also you can point out, and I'll move on after this, but you can point out that if I'm providing the room, okay, they're paying for it, but if I'm providing the room, the brand identity and the customer, the HMRC might consider you to be an employee, especially as you can only work during the hours that I dictate by opening and shutting. So there is a lot around that you can reinforce why there's a benefit to them owning.
Oh, and also I wouldn't pay them the rates that they're charging to their clients. You know, they get a fraction of that. That would be the point. They're an employee at that point. You know, you know, they probably take a quarter maybe.
I think from all of the conversations we've had and from your own forthrightness about this and very clarity around it, there is a great opportunity here to educate those people who are looking around running a business. This is why we do it this way, because, and here it is. And you cover off all those objections. So when you get to the, would you like to come and join this high quality practice and take out space, they can't raise any of those objections because you covered them off already. And if they say, oh, no, thank you, you know that your process weeds out those people with a 20-minute presentation as to why you do the things that you do.
Yeah.
And you're not wasting your time. And you can almost send it to them and say, we will be going through this on the day. If there's any questions about this beforehand, please let me know. Because they might send you an email back saying, oh, so you don't guarantee customers? No. Oh, thanks. Save yourself 20 minutes. Save yourself a heartache of talking to them.
Yeah.
Cool. Talking of minutes, we've got to move on to the next question.
Moving on. So we talked about the layer process. Listen, acknowledge, explore and respond. And you can roll around that quite a lot. But the best way to discover and get some conclusions in place is by asking open-ended questions. Now, I don't know everybody's relationship status, but it's been a while since I had to go on a date. But I love to go on a date because I was really interested in the person opposite me. And I found it very easy because I was doing sales and that, really easy to draw out that person. And I heard more often than not, after somebody had been speaking for 45 minutes, well, you know all about me, I've heard nothing about you, because I got very good at asking questions and letting the other person talk. So that's kind of the approach you have to have. You need to find out from that person about their problem and about their situation so that you can build the right offer to put in front of them. And that's going to be different for all sorts of different businesses. Not only the questions you ask, but the nature of those questions and the types of answers you want. So start with the end in mind. What answers do you need to make sure that the person sat in front of you is the ideal person to say yes? Okay, they might not say yes. There might be reasons, and again, we go around that LAER process. But and you might go through the process and go, actually, they're not a good fit. And by saying that, you take empowerment from it and saying, unfortunately, we can't help you on this basis. But you can go round and round with some open-ended questions. So some examples. What are your goals for this project? What are the key wins that you're looking for out of this particular purchase? A one that we asked this morning, actually, is a good example. Why did you choose the business niche, industry or sector that you're in? That gets the person warmed up, okay, which builds rapport. Don't always think that the sales question has to lead to a definitive answer. just building that rapport and leaning into the person and saying, you're really interesting. Why are you doing that? I'm fascinated by it. These questions draw out the person from beyond just the sales conversation and show that you're actually interested in them as a person. Asking them about their average day and how the product or service that you provide is going to help them, or the time that it's going to save them. You get them to tell you the benefit of your business. So why do you need a VA? Oh, okay, that's interesting. So saving time is a real thing for you at the moment. You're really stressed by that lack of time. Yeah. Oh, okay. And what would you do with that spare time? So you see, you can layer up these open-ended questions to get to the person to a point where they realize that actually they really do need you. And these questions don't happen by accident. Yeah, when the phone rings, you shouldn't be trying to think of these questions. You should start thinking about what answers do you need to hear, and how do you get those answers with the questions you ask, not just a random string of questions that have a nice chat and then, oh, by the way, we're £30 an hour. Oh, that's a bit too expensive. Thank you for calling. So you're having that conversation with a purpose, and that you're leading that conversation because that person has called you. They've asked you. You might have initiated that first introduction of your business, but ultimately they're making an inquiry about, oh, so what do you do, or how can you help? So just have a think about those questions that you could put in place. And I literally have questions written down in a document that as soon as the phone rings, I can ping open on my computer, and I make sure that I ask all of the salient ones if somebody hasn't actually asked me those questions. It doesn't take a huge amount of structure to have that available. Pin them on a post-it note. Stick them near where your eye line is when you're on your phone. Yeah, you'll get used to asking them. You'll build that muscle memory of, oh yeah, they haven't answered this. Oh, I need to know that. Okay, so think about those open-ended questions and how you can ask them. And if you get stuck, yeah, I'm more than happy to have a practice sales call with you so you can practice on me with those open-ended questions, and I will role play your customer.
That's a really good idea, actually, Stu, because you don't often get the opportunity to practice that kind of thing, do you? So, and we often get fixated on the actual sale as opposed to all the other stuff that builds up. You know, we go straight in for it. So, yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah. One of the questions I always ask when I phone person, even if they've booked with me, is now still a good time to talk? Because you don't know what's happening at their end. You know, the cat might have just jumped on the baby, the house might be on fire, 3 other people are queued up trying to buy from them. Just simple questions like that of acknowledging that the other person's time is important to you. That they are really subtle cues of saying, I value this conversation and thank you for spending some time telling me about your problem. Without being sycophantic, just by going, we're all busy people, and thank you. That can all make a difference. So how do you identify if your prospect is serious about buying? In the workbook, I just say you can ask. You can ask. But there are ways of asking, okay? You don't have to be rude or interrogate them, but knowing whether or not your prospect is actually going to put their hand in their pocket anytime soon, and they're not just having one of those moments where, oh, it'd really be nice to have a VA, and oh, I'd like them to do this, and I'd like them to do that. I'll just put out a few feelers, and I'll get a few quotes, but they haven't made the emotional commitment to take that next step. And you'll see we do this in Jumpstart January. We talk about an emotional, physical, and spiritual connection to growing your business. You have to make that commitment. If you're not prepared to make that commitment, you're never going to become a BizHub member, because why would you? If you don't want to grow your business and you're not serious about growing your business, why would you buy into something that is all about that? So we're pre-qualifying people with that question. You know, that's a real insight into how we went into Jumpstart January. We dug and we dug and we dug, and we made sure that we had people in the room, and that talk splits the room into the people that are interested in joining because they agree with what we're saying. Yes, I have made that commitment. And the people who are like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So really think about those questions that you can ask, not just being open-ended questions, but questions which explore how serious they are about parting with their money and their time into implementing whatever it is they're coming to you to buy. So you can ask simple things like, how quickly do you want this to get started? If they haven't thought about that, that might indicate that they're a bit soft on actually moving forward with it. Have you allocated a budget, or have you thought around a budget about this? Oh, no, not really, because we haven't had any quotes. Okay, but is there room in your budget to make up for the payments to us whilst you get more customers that this time gives us? You know, I'm talking specifically about a VA, Angie, but there are other ways of digging in and finding out if they're serious about buying. And again, it comes back to that question of, oh, I'll think about it. Well, you might not have done enough sales discovery. Oh, I need to speak to my boss or my employees or my wife. You didn't pre-qualify the customer. These aren't sales problems. These are pre-sales problems. When you're having the conversation, you should be very sure that the person in front of you is the person that can say, yes, they want to proceed. And having a pre-sales conversation is just as valid as having a sales conversation. So think of that first phone call as, I'm just going to find out as much as I can about this person. And if they seem like they want to commit and move forward, and I've got all the answers to the questions I want, I can then sell to them. But this is about finding out. It's about sales discovery in the first instance. And you might conduct that on your website. You might conduct that over email. You might send the person a questionnaire. You know, before we have our sales talk or our consult, could you just answer these few questions? It helps me prepare for the meeting and give you the most value out of it. That allows you to see how soft they are on it. And then you can ask some, you know, more firm questions in and around that conversation, rather than just going in blind and winging it. Is this making sense to people, that there's a process here? It's not just about picking up the phone and talking. And even if, you know, your marketing is pushing out information to people and saying, please give me a call, and you do get a sales call out of the blue, you can still roll around that process. Right, the early part of this conversation is about sales discovery. Let's go through the layer process. Okay, I found everything. This person seems eager and wants to move forward, seems to be the person who can sign off on it. I can just simply ask the question. So if I send over my invoice and you pay it today, we can get that started for you. How does that sound? You know, you have to ask for the sale. There has to be a point at which you're saying, there's going to be an exchange here. We are developing a contract and I want to send you an invoice. You send me the money and then you get me to do what you want to do. And I would always try and urge people that there is an exchange of value before you start doing what you do, because otherwise you might end up doing what you do and then the other person goes, oh, there's these 10 other things which I didn't say to you about, but they're now really important. You haven't done them and I'm not paying. And we used to get that all the time when we first started doing websites. We'd build the website, put it up, and the person, oh, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that. Well, you didn't say so. Yeah, but I saw it on these 5 other websites. I just thought that's how websites work. So, you know, saying to them, we have 50% up front, 50% on launch, and then you've got some value in your business from doing any work, is if you get to the end of the project, at least have covered off your costs. So thinking about that, are there any questions around how you identify whether or not your buyer or your prospect is serious? Anybody got any thoughts or questions around that before we hustle on quickly?
Shana has.
Yeah, I do tend to ask about when they're looking to start their business. I tend to ask, in fact, I tend to do the first bit by email, and it does state, I tend to send them a rate card so they know what rates I'm charging. I tend to lay it all out before, I have a meeting at the centre to show them what we can offer, because I don't know, I'm sort of rethinking that, maybe that I'm putting people off right at the beginning, but maybe that's a good thing. I talked to an awful lot of people in the first few months that I took over, and none of them came. So I sort of went this way, and now I think maybe I'm screening out too many, but it does cover everything off, including that line about, you know, while we can help, we're not there to create their customers. That's down to them.
I think there are ways of delivering that information, and if you have a feeling that it may be pushing people away too quickly, then modify your approach. Mm-hmm. Business is about a process of development and testing. So you're testing a way of doing something. Okay, I know that has this result. Let me change it. I know I can keep doing that, but let me change it and see if I get a different result. Oh, I didn't. I got a worse result. Right, I'm going back to the way that I know I get this result. But can I change it in a different way and get a better result? Because I know that that's a negative result. So if I do the opposite of that, will I get a positive result? So it really is about testing it. As Vanessa said in her first talk, you know, don't send out 500 sales letters. Send out a batch of 5 to 10. Test it. Did it get you a result? Can you tweak it? Mm-hmm. And I used to think in the early days, when I used to write a sales email and send it out, that I was potentially doing something wrong because I wasn't sending out the same email to every single person. I was tweaking it. I was going to their website and rewriting little bits. And I thought, well, maybe that's a bit too kind of manual. And then I realized that no, actually, it was getting me some good results because I was writing to each person individually, but wrapping the information about what we did in something that was specific for that customer. Now that approach might not work if you've got very low margins, but it can certainly find the one that will work if you do it first and go, actually, I sent 20 different emails. There were 3 that got me the right results. Okay, I'm going to focus on those 3 and just polish them and see if, you know, I can make them even better than they are. So having a different approach can really make a difference to your business.
I mean, it hasn't been worse than what I was doing before, because what it's done is saved me all the time of meeting everyone and who then hasn't committed. So it hasn't actually been worse. And actually, I do need to think about how I market, because I do no marketing to actually attract the people I really want, because I think the people I'm attracting aren't the people I want. Yeah, I think passively, not by failing to market and just being passive about it, I'm not attracting the people I actually want.
From what all of the discussions you've said, and from what I know of all of the things that you're doing and the types of customer you want renting the rooms, brand building the quality of your centre and building that up in the community's eyes, so that when they come, they know that they're coming to a quality establishment that will really be a feather in their cap if they get in. You want people to go, I hope I get through the interview process and I get offered a slot, you know, because that's the ideal way that you have a premium brand that people want to be a part of.
Absolutely. And I mean, I've got some time now, because in fact we've got less space available. I've got the opposite issue of most people, in that I've got more customers than I've got space for at the moment. Luckily, quite a lot of them can't work, but there'll come a point when we've got some real pinch points. So I've got some time to think about it, because there will be, come January, we'll be back to a more normal regime. There will be space. So I'm going to try a few things while...
that we've been downgraded from a 4 to a 3 on the... whatever that means. Right,
so, we're nearly out of time, Stu.
Yes. I just want to run quickly through, do your prospects ask unexpected questions? If the answer is yes, then it may very well be likely you didn't uncover enough in the sales discovery process to prevent that happening. It can happen at any time. People come to you with all sorts of weird and wonderful conceptions in their head, and they may ask you unexpected questions, even 3, 4, 10 years down the line when you think you've heard everything. But this is about, if you keep getting surprised by the questions that you're being asked, you're either attracting the wrong type of customer, or you haven't done enough pre-sales discovery that those questions don't come up. So there's not enough information on your website, for instance. You can really, really weed people out with a good FAQ section and push people towards it, saying, here's the many questions that we get asked, and reiterate, if this doesn't give you the right answer, come back to us. But, you know, these are the questions you ask. And as soon as you get asked a strange question, yeah, write it down, write up your response, stick it on your FAQs, and just keep doing that. Yeah, it should be a repository, so that even if you use it in your sales meeting, you get a phone call, you've got your FAQs up, somebody asks it, you can click on it and you can paraphrase it in a way that makes sense to the person on the call, but shares that experience and makes it consistent with what they might just be testing you. You said that on your website, right? Let me ask that question again and see if I get the same answer, and that can happen. So we're kind of out of time. I'm hoping that that was a whistle-stop tour through the pre-sales and sales discovery process, and that you got some value out of that. I'm always available for a chat. If you get stuck, or you have a question, or you have a situation where you think, I don't know if I did that right, I'm happy to role play it with you, happy to have that discussion. But thank you for coming today, and thank you for spending time. I'm hoping you got value out of it. Give me a thumbs up if you liked what you heard. Thank you. I won't ask for a thumbs. Hey, Gareth, I'll speak to you later. Thank you so much. Don't forget, 3:30 Beer Friday. I think we've all deserved one. I think we all deserve one this week.
And thank you again to Scott and to Emma for the first part this morning, and Russell. I know he's not here. And Russell, wherever you are. It was really good. I've had a really good morning, and it's lovely to see everybody.
Fantastic. And again, like I say, I'm always here. If you get stuck, let me know. I've got people that I can rely on, that if I get really, really stuck and you really, really need a big, really, really big answer, I can ask them. So please don't feel like you can't ask anything after this. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just get it up on the screen, as I always do. Is it there? No.
Don't forget to book onto Mastermind next week if you haven't already.
Yeah, Mastermind. Don't forget. And I'm just going to do this because I can. You seeing that, ladies and gentlemen? Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. Guests. Our guest didn't turn up. Boo. We'll have to follow up anyway. We'll send him an email anyway.
Sorry, just one last thing. We will all be seeing you all next Tuesday for our coffee morning. I know Shayna's just, her coffee and biscuits have arrived, so we'll see you all next Tuesday at 11 o'clock for that.
Absolutely, yeah. And as Lou said, coming up next week, Member Spotlight. It's not Member Spotlight, Members Mastermind. I got that wrong. Sorry, I put, it should have been Master. Ignore that. The date's right, the image is right, the word there is wrong. And that's it. Beer Friday, 3:30, and we're out of here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending, and we'll see you very, very soon, no doubt. Any questions? Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye. Bye. Nice to see you.
Bye-bye.